Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back, Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer with you. Okay, so this is going to be a video that will answer some questions that a few people had in relation to the nodes, and more specifically, I just had a few requests about what's the significance of the moon's nodes being conjunct any of the four angles in the chart. Now, initially when I thought about that, I thought, well, I'm not 100% certain how much significance that has. However, upon further reflection, I've changed my mind. And this is what I'd like to share. So anyway, a few people have asked the question, so here is my answer to it, at least, in terms of more the intuition that I get about it. The feeling that I get about it, because I have to be honest, I haven't done many readings for people who have had the moon's nodes exactly conjunct the ascendant descendant, for instance, or the midheaven IC. And you know, I've said this before and I'll say it again. With astrology, you know, obviously it's, for a start, it's a symbolic language. So there's many different ways to understand astrology, and it depends which branch of astrology you're examining as well. But whichever way you're, whichever area of astrology you're working with, whilst there is a technical side, and whilst there are primary foundations, which is the zodiac has everything contained within it, because the zodiac describes the entire universe or universes. It describes everything, literally. So understanding the zodiac is the key, absolute key to everything about astrology, really, because everything derives from that. Anyway, leave that aside for a moment. When you are working with astrology, you will find your own groove with it, your own feeling with it. There are rules with regards to, you know, what orbs to use for aspects, what aspects, you know, take more precedence over others, and you know, there's so many different frameworks that you can integrate into your body of astrology, the body of work of astrology. You know, there's the essential dignities and debilities. So paying attention to rulership, exaltation, detriment, and fall. Personally, I think that's actually very important. But I have studied medieval astrology, so therefore I understand the relevance and importance of it. Also paying attention to houses. Now, this brings us back to the purpose of this video. When we're talking about the four houses of the four angles of the birth chart, which is also called the cross of matter, which means the ascendant, so the most easterly point of the chart, the descendant, where the sun sets. So the ascendant is always where the sun rises, the descendant is where the sun sets, and directly above the zenith point is where the sun is at pretty much midday. Directly below that, which is the fourth house, CIC, that's midnight. So it's always handy to remember that and to know that, you know, so that you can get a feel and a better understand of what this map is all about. What's this circle about with the 12 circles within it, this 360-degree circle? What actually is it? You know, in terms of the planet's movements through there and the zodiac, you know, the circle represents the ecliptic. So anyway, that's a little bit more outside of what we're discussing today, but it is important to understand from the point of view of when it comes to the ascendant, especially the ascendant, always especially the ascendant. The reason I say that is because the ascendant is the soul. In esoteric astrology, the ascendant is the soul coming into the body, into this form, which is that chart. The ascendant is the soul literally incarnating. I can't put it any clearer than that. So that should help you understand why the ascendant is so important. So anything on that ascendant point, especially if it's exactly the same degree, it's going to be magnified and amplified, you know, in great ways. Now, In medieval astrology, and you can take this view or you can leave it, it's entirely up to you. In medieval astrology, the angular houses, which is the ascendant, first house, descendant, seventh house, MC, 10th house, IC, fourth house, are considered to be the most powerful houses in the chart. And when we say the most powerful, it means for better or for worse. So if you have a planet on one of those angles, and let's just say it's a malefic, such as Saturn or Mars, and let's just say that Saturn or Mars is afflicted through the sign that it's in. It doesn't do very well in the sign that it's in, or let's just say that it's in a sign of rulership. Now, because Mars and Saturn are malefics in general, their inherent nature is malefic, those planets can operate in the individual's chart, especially when they're located in an angular position of the chart. They can operate in a real negative way, to use a simple term, or they can be activated in a tremendously powerful way as well, with very destructive energy, malefic energy, or it can be productive as well, but it does depend on a number of different factors. The point being, though, that when you have something on those four angles, it is amplified for better or for worse, period. Now, when it comes to the nodes, my thinking is that when you have the North Node, for example, conjunct the ascendant point, there's got to be something very important about that North Node and South Node axis falling right on the ascendant descendant axis. But when I say on the ascendant descendant, I'm really trying to draw a distinction here from the North Node being several degrees away from the ascendant. I think the importance here is when the node is, say, 1 or 2 degrees or exactly conjunct the ascendant. That's when I think there's something really pressing, really urgent, really important about that North Node for the individual. The North Node is important, period, anyway. We know that. It's a representation of our soul's journey, of our soul's evolutionary path, and what we need to pretty much develop, integrate, grow, and so forth. But when you get it conjunct one of those four angles, then clearly it's trying to get your attention even more so than it is if it's, say, just tucked away in one of the other houses in the center there somewhere. No, I just want to be clear, though. As I said, the nodes are important regardless of where they are. Some houses are easier than others. There's that element. Some signs are easier than others to cultivate and integrate. The most difficult houses for the nodes would have to be the 2nd and the 8th, 6 and 12, in my opinion. So when it comes to having the nodes conjunct the angles, I guess the thing that you would add to that is just simply that those nodes are there's something quite urgent about the message relating to those nodes, that person really needs to get in touch with this lifetime. They really need to get that energy activated, integrated, connected, because anything that touches those angles, as I said, is always magnified, for better or for worse. Whether it's great or whether it's really difficult, it's still going to be amplified and activated. So that's what I want to say about having the nodes conjunct any of those angles. Now, the other thing as well, that's just one sort of level. You'd also be looking at, where are the rulers to those nodes? Are the rulers to the nodes in angular houses as well? Well, that will double amplify the expression of those nodes. If they were in succedent or cadent houses, maybe the volume of intensity would sort of decrease a little bit. Anything in angular houses 1, 4, 7, and 10 is always amplified and activated, period. So in addition to that, I think another really important thing to look at if you are wanting to understand how those houses are working, those parts of life, you know, look at the rulers of your four angles. Where are those rulers located? Because the position that the rulers are located in is going to give you a very big idea and clarity around how successful you are at getting those matters of your life on path. You know, in an authentic way where you feel happy, where you feel like, you know, your life works, essentially. I mean, to put it very simple, and this is a very black and white perspective, but it's medieval astrology is very black and white. So, as I said, take what you want, disregard what you want. It's entirely up to you. But in medieval astrology, when it comes to the angular houses, 1, 7, 4, and 10, as I said already a couple of times, things are greatly amplified for better or for worse. When it comes to the succedent houses, which is, succedent house is every house after an angle. Okay, so if the first house represents the ascendant, and that's the angle, then the second house, which is the subsequent house, which is number 2, is considered a succedent house. The house after that, which is house number 3, the Gemini house, that's considered a cadent house. Succedent houses are very powerful from the point of view of having teamwork, you know, having people kind of working with you on things. If you can, the greatest success you can get out of the succedent houses is when you've got some kind of teamwork support happening. That's how those houses get really, that's how you can get the most out of them, essentially. So if you had the ruler of, you know, your 10th house, the MC, in a succedent house, and you'd be looking at what is that succedent house about. What's it? The succedent houses are 2, 5, 8, and 11. So those 4 houses are called succedent, and they operate according to medieval astrology. The best that we can get out of them is through working with other people in some kind of way. All right, so it's not, we're not doing it alone. The first house is you yourself doing it alone, total independence, you know, total autonomy. The succedent houses are different. The cadent houses, which is 3, 6, 9, and 12, which are very powerful houses, by the way, but in medieval astrology, they were considered quite weak houses. Various reasons, which I'm not going to go into and unpack it. That's like a whole other story. But you know, just pay attention, have a look at your own chart. You know, what's on the angles of your chart, if anything at all. With regards to the nodes, wherever they are in your chart, where are the rulers? Are they in an angular house? Are they tucked away somewhere in a cadent house? All these things are going to help you assess and unlock the mysteries of your own chart, of your own life, potentially other people's lives as well. Sometimes things are not, you know, just clear cut. We have to use our intuition and our imagination when it comes to astrology. That's what I was trying to say earlier on in this video, that whilst there are foundations that you must have learnt to understand astrology, and there are rules and, you know, things like that that you apply with certain technical aspects and so forth, you must also rely on your own intuition and imagination. You must use that to get a feel of what is the chart saying to you, what is speaking to you through that chart. And that can only be done through experience, through, you know, working with charts and people. Not just charts alone, it's working with people as well, because you're wanting to get people's feedback of what their experience is of their chart, how it lives through them. So, you know, there's a bit of everything involved in understanding how a chart actually works and why it works the way it does, you know, in different ways for different people. So back to the final point of this video, when the nodes are conjunct any of those 4 angles, particularly the ascendant, there's something very powerful because the ascendant represents the soul, as I said. Esoterically, the ascendant is the soul. And don't forget as well that the ascendant is, it's 100% time dependent because it's the time that you were born. So this is where having the right time of birth is so crucial. The ascendant degree, to have that 100% accurate, is not only is it important, but it's also very, very powerful for a number of different reasons, especially when it comes to predictive work. Sorry, it's very noisy at this time of the day where I live. I have to apologize for the noise. So now, when it comes to the nodes conjunct the angles, I would be looking at their rulers. I mean, you're looking at the rulers either way, wherever the nodes are located, but pay strong attention to the rulers of those nodes when they are conjunct those angles. You guys are probably wanting a bit more. I just suddenly realized that. Okay, I've explained to you the importance of why they are important on those angles. The meaning of it really is related to, well, the ascendant is obvious, isn't it? Because I've just spoken about it being the soul. So we know that it's when a node is on the ascendant, exactly conjunct the ascendant, there's something very urgent about the soul coming through at that particular time with the node there at the same time. In other words, there's something very, very primary and important about the person's life getting that node worked out. Now, it could be the south node that's on the ascendant, which clearly is going to be different than if it's the north node, right? But if it is the south node, it's just as important and just as activated. And I'd need to have a chart example to unpack that further. But if it was a south node, then I'd be really looking to understand, well, what sign is that south node in? It's going to be the same sign as the ascendant. So there's a double message there again. You know, the soul ascendant, the south node is the same sign as the ascendant. So there's a very, very strong energy of this soul's character or color or energy, whatever you want to call it, coming through very, very strongly. Something that really needs to be really understood this lifetime. Something hasn't really been resolved when the south node is on the ascendant. Because the soul incarnating at the time that it has, having the south node on the ascendant, I'm just trying to find the words to explain it. I can feel what it means. Sometimes it's hard to bring language into what I intuitively understand. So the soul, being the ascendant, is very much about our intention, right? It's the intention of our incarnation and what we are here to evolve into and develop into. So if the south node is there, then there must be some very important message about what the soul needs to really identify and clarify and work through regarding that south node, which is going to bring in the 7th house, because the north node is in the 7th house, right? Which that whole axis, the ascendant, descendant, 1st house, 7th house, is all about relationships. It's about self and other. So the 1st house is how you project yourself out there, and the 7th house is what gets projected back to you. So that axis of ascendant, descendant, and like I said in my previous video, which I hope you've watched in order to make sense out of this one, the previous one being planets conjunct the South Node, and one before that was planets conjunct the North Node. It's probably good to watch those if you haven't, so you can get more of an understanding of what I'm talking about today. But as I said in the previous video, the North Node and the South Node are very much an axis that has to do with relationships and associations and connections we make. So put that on the ascendant-descendant axis, then clearly that axis takes even more prominence with the North Node and South Node sitting on that axis. So something about the world of relationships becomes quite urgent, you could say. Now, if the nodes are down the IC and MC, the urgency is the same in terms of the level of intensity, because they are angular houses, but the story and the what those nodes are going to connect to is, it's different to the ascendant descendant, because the 4th house is all about your soul. It's also your ancestral lines, and ancestral parental energetic lines and so forth. It's past, and the 10th house is your social self. So if the nodes are on the 4th and 10th axis, then there's something very important about your sense of self, the identity that you've cultivated on a very deep level internally, the work that you've done inside yourself. And well, it depends if the South Node's down by the 4th and the North Node is up on the 10th. And let's just say that that is the case. If the South Node is right on the IC, then there must be some very important message about your past ancestral karmic family lines. Something very, very important to understand about that, that you need to understand in order to help you actually get to the 10th, the MC. And when we flip that around, if the North Node was down on the IC and the South Node was up there on the MC, then the North Node on the IC, well, let's go to the South Node on the MC. I would think that there must be something about that person's previous incarnations relating to their public self, their public life. There'll be a story around that. And then I'd be looking at the North Node down on the IC, because if the North Node and South Node is right on that axis, now I'm talking right on, a lot of this is going to apply with the nodes being in these houses anyway. So we're really not taking any other kind of meaning, because the meaning of those 4 angles and those houses is the same, whether we've got something in those houses or not, whether we've got something on exactly on those angular points or not. The meaning of those angular points and houses remains the same. That's the bottom line. That's the first thing. But what we're saying here is, though, that when the nodes are right on those points, same degree, then there must be some very important urgency about getting those nodes truly activated and evolved in this lifetime. I think I'll leave it there, because to say anything further, I would need a chart to unpack. Because even with what we've discussed today, with this idea, you always need to just assess the individual chart. The chart speaks a particular energy story about the soul, and we need to use our intuition and imagination, as I said before. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is, maybe for some people that have the nodes conjunct the angles, it's not as urgent or primary as it might be for somebody else. And that there'll be reasons for that. There'll be things that will potentially reveal that. But it's like saying that you've got 5 people in front of you and they were all born with sun on the ascendant. Now, are all these 4 people going to be the same? Are they all going to have the same story about their life? Of course not. Well, it's the same with the nodes on the angles. So it'll be a very different experience for each person, which is why you need to, it's about synthesizing everything in the chart to get a sense of what it means for that person to have the nodes conjunct those angles. And it'll be there. There'll be a story, but it's about the synthesis, the integration of everything that you do when you are actually looking at a whole chart. Okay, leave it there. I think that's enough to kind of just get you, I suppose, thinking more and yeah, doing some of your own investigation. Anything else? No, I think that's it. Okay, much love and blessings, and thanks for your questions, because it is questions that end up prompting these videos as well. Because I do like responding and answering as best I can. Okay, leave any questions or comments below this video if you have any relating to this subject, and feel free to contact me for a reading, any type of reading. There are many different types of readings, and certainly for chart rectification. Okay, love and blessings. Bye. See you guys soon. Bye.